The alien girl's plea. The human walked alone through the ruins of the alien settlement. Smoke curled from broken roofs, and the air smelled of dust and old fire. The war had ended months ago, but the ground still carried scars. Streets were empty, doors broken, and silence hung heavy like a ghost. He had not come here for gold or glory. He had come only to trade food and tools, maybe find something useful. But as he walked, he felt eyes watching him from the shadows. Small eyes, sharp with fear but also with desperate hope. Then he heard it. A soft sob. He turned and saw her. A little alien girl, no older than 7 human years. Her skin was pale violet, marked with dirt. Her eyes glowed faintly like dying stars. She clutched a ragged doll to her chest, as if it were her last treasure. She stood in the middle of the street, trembling. Tears streaked her cheeks, cutting lines through the dust on her face. When the human stepped closer, she did not run. Instead, she rushed to him and grabbed his sleeve. Her hands were small, shaking, but her grip was strong. "Please, human," she whispered, her voice breaking like glass. "Please, make my mom smile again." The human froze. Of all the pleas he had heard in war and in peace, he had never heard this one. Children begged for food, water, or safety, but never for something so strange, so impossible. The girl's tears fell faster, soaking into his sleeve. "She does not smile anymore, not since my father died," the child said. Her eyes, wide and shining, lifted to meet his. "Be her husband. Please, human, be with her, so she can smile again." The human's heart jolted inside his chest. He wanted to pull away, to tell her he could not. But he looked at her face, so full of sorrow, so full of hope, and he could not speak. The wind carried silence around them. In the broken street, only her small voice remained, echoing in his ears. He knelt down, so his eyes were level with hers. Her little body shook as she tried to wipe her tears with dirty fingers. Her doll slipped from her arms and fell into the dust. She did not notice. Her gaze never left him. She was waiting for his answer, waiting as if her life depended on it. The human tried to speak gently. "Little one, why me? I am only a traveler." Her lip trembled. "Because you are the only one who stopped, the only one who looked at me," she said. "Others walk by, they don't see me, they don't care." Her voice cracked again. "But you saw me." The human swallowed hard. He had not planned for this. He had faced blasters, beasts, and battles. But he had never faced a child's broken heart. And now, that tiny heart had placed a weight on him heavier than any weapon could. "Please," she whispered again, her grip tightening on his sleeve. "Make her smile. Even once, even for me." Her words stabbed deep into him. For a long moment, he stayed silent. The ruined street seemed to wait with him. The wind stilled, and even the crows above had gone quiet. He thought of the many faces he had seen in his travels. Faces hardened by grief. Faces twisted by anger. But a child's face, wet with tears yet shining with hope, was the most powerful of all. The human gently picked up the doll from the dust and gave it back to her. She hugged it tight, her small chest heaving. Her eyes never left his. Still waiting, still hoping. Her plea hung in the air like an unanswered prayer. Finally, he said softly, "Take me to her." The girl's eyes widened, glowing brighter with sudden light. "Truly? You will come?" she gasped. The human only nodded, though doubt gnawed at him inside. What was he doing? Why was he agreeing to this? He had no answer, only the weight of her tears guiding him forward. The girl tugged on his hand eagerly. "Come, hurry, before she falls asleep again." Her steps were small but determined, leading him through the broken streets. The human followed, his boots crunching on the rubble. Each step felt like a step into something greater than himself, something he could not yet see. At last, they reached a small home, its walls cracked and roof sagging. A single lantern flickered inside, casting weak light through the doorway. The girl stopped, turned to him, and whispered. "She sits inside all day, She never laughs. She never sings. She only stares. Her voice dropped to a fragile hush. If you can make her smile, even once, I will know there is still hope. The human stood frozen at the doorway. Inside, a shadow sat by the dim lantern, motionless. He could not yet see her face, but he felt the weight of her sorrow pressing through the air. The girl squeezed his hand one last time and whispered with trembling lips, "Please, human, don't say no." The human took a deep breath and stepped inside. The human stepped carefully into the dim house. The air inside was heavy, filled with silence and dust. A weak lantern sat on the table, its light trembling like it, too, was afraid. Shadows stretched along the cracked walls, hiding the corners where old memories slept. He saw her sitting there, the mother. She was motionless, her head bowed, her hands resting lifelessly on her lap. Her hair, once dark and shining, now hung dull and tangled. Her skin carried the faint glow of her people, but it was fading like a dying ember. The little girl ran forward, clutching her doll tightly. "Mom," she whispered, almost afraid to disturb the silence. The woman's head lifted slowly, and her eyes opened. They were deep, golden once, but now dull with sorrow. When she looked at her daughter, there was a flicker of warmth. But when she saw the human standing in the doorway, her expression turned guarded. The human nodded respectfully, not wanting to frighten her. But he could not ignore the hollow emptiness in her gaze. It was the same look he had seen in soldiers who had lost everything. A look that spoke of someone who lived but no longer lived for themselves. The little girl whispered quickly, "He came to help, Mama, he is kind." Her mother frowned faintly, her lips tightening. Her voice was quiet, fragile. "Why is a human here?" It was not anger, not hate, only a tired suspicion. The human stepped closer slowly, keeping his voice soft. "I am just a traveler. Your daughter asked me to come." The woman's gaze dropped. "She should not trouble strangers," she said, her words trembling. "She does not understand." The little girl rushed to her side, tugging her hand. "But Mama, I told him you do not smile anymore." Her mother stiffened, her breath catching. The child's voice broke into sobs. "Please, Mama, I just want to see you happy again." The human felt the weight of those words, heavier than stone. The room grew colder with her silence. Finally, she spoke, her voice so faint it almost broke apart. "Happiness died with him," she whispered. The girl buried her face in her mother's lap, crying softly. The human stood still, his chest aching at the sight. The mother placed a trembling hand on her daughter's hair. Her fingers brushed the child's head gently, but her eyes stayed far away. "They say time heals, but time has only made me emptier," she said. Her voice was not meant for the human, not even for the girl. It was as if she was speaking into the void, to someone long gone. The human looked around the house. The walls were bare except for one faded picture, an alien man standing proudly with his family. The resemblance to the girl was strong, his smile wide and full of life. The mother had once smiled like that too. He could see it in the faint echo of her face. Now, that smile was gone, locked away with the dead. The girl wiped her eyes and whispered to her mother, "Mama, he can help us. He can stay. He can make you smile." The mother's eyes closed, and her lips pressed tight as if holding back tears. "My daughter, you should not ask this of him," she whispered. "No human or alien can carry the pieces of what I have lost." Her voice trembled, and for the first time, her shoulders shook. The human realized she was fighting not to cry in front of her child. That battle was breaking her, piece by piece. He felt something stir inside him. A deep ache, the urge to do something, anything. Not out of pity, but because the weight in this house was unbearable. It was too much for one child to carry alone. The human spoke gently. "Your daughter believes in hope, even if it feels impossible to you." The woman lifted her gaze, her eyes sharp with pain. "Hope is cruel," she whispered. "It only reminds me of what I can never have again." The little girl clung to her mother's arm. "But Mama, I saw you smile once when he told a story, she said, pointing at the human. Her mother blinked in confusion, her lips parting slightly. The girl nodded quickly. He made me laugh today, he can do the same for you. For a moment, the mother's eyes flickered. Not with joy, not with anger, but with something fragile, something uncertain. She shook her head quickly, hiding her face in her hands. No, child, don't ask me. I cannot, her voice cracked. The human stepped closer, kneeling at a respectful distance. I do not claim to replace what you lost, he said. I am only here because your daughter asked me, and I will honor that. The mother's shoulders rose and fell with heavy breaths. For the first time, a tear slipped from her eye, sliding down her cheek. Her daughter saw it and gasped softly. Mama, you are crying, the girl whispered, touching her cheek gently. The mother covered her face with her hands, shaking. I am weak, she said, her voice breaking. No, Mama, the girl whispered back, you are strong, but you are hurting. The human stayed silent, giving her space. In that silence, the room felt alive again. Not with laughter, not with peace, but with truth, raw and painful. The girl leaned against her mother's chest, holding tightly as if she could keep her together. The woman lowered her hands slowly, revealing eyes red with tears. For the first time in years, she was not hiding her sorrow. And in that moment, the human understood. She was not just broken. She was trapped inside grief, unable to find the way out. The girl looked at the human, her eyes pleading. Please, don't leave us, she whispered. The human met her gaze and gave a small nod. He did not know what role he was stepping into. But he knew one thing. He could not walk away now. The lantern flickered again. And in its trembling light, the human saw something stir faintly in the mother's eyes. Not a smile, not yet, but the first tiny spark of life returning. The human returned the next day. The little girl was waiting for him near the ruins, her face brighter than before. She took his hand quickly, pulling him toward the broken home. Her steps were small but fast, filled with a strange kind of hope. Inside, the house was the same, dim, quiet, and heavy with silence. The mother sat near the lantern, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes distant. When she saw the human, she looked down, as if she did not want him to read her thoughts. The girl whispered, Mama, he came back. But the mother only nodded weakly, not speaking. The human sat on a chair near the wall. The wood creaked under his weight, and the silence stretched long. He noticed small details, how the floor was swept but empty of rugs, how the shelves were bare except for a cracked bowl and one picture. It was not the home of the poor, it was the home of the grieving. Everything that once held warmth had been stripped away by sorrow. The girl tried to fill the air with her voice. She spoke about the doll, about the tiny flower she found near the ruins. But her mother's smile was forced, thin, and gone too quickly. It was not a smile of joy, it was only a mask. The human saw the girl's face fall each time. Her mother's smile never lasted long enough. Later, when the girl went outside to play, the human stayed in the room with the mother. He studied her silently, her stillness, her tired movements. It was like watching someone drift slowly away from the world. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady. Your daughter loves you more than anything. The woman's head lowered, and she whispered, she deserves better. The human frowned, better than a mother who stays alive for her. Her lips trembled, and her eyes glistened. I stay alive, yes, but I am not living, she admitted. I cook because she must eat. I wake because she needs me to wake. But inside, I am gone. The human's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, but he knew her pain was not something words alone could break. Instead, he asked softly, what was it like, before? Her eyes lifted for the first time, and a faint light touched them. There was laughter, she whispered, her voice far away. My mate would sing as he worked, my daughter would dance, and I would laugh. She closed her eyes, and tears slipped out. This house once lived, now it only breathes. The girl came running back, her small feet tapping the floor. "Mama, look," she shouted, holding a little rock shaped like a heart. Her mother tried to smile, but the sadness behind it was clear. The human saw the girl's shoulders droop. Even her gifts could not bring real joy. That night, the human shared food with them. The mother ate quietly, only enough to stay strong. The girl tried to talk about stories she remembered, but soon her voice faded. The house swallowed every sound, every attempt at laughter. It was a place without joy, and the human realized how hard it must be for the child to live in such silence. After the girl slept, the human remained. He looked at the woman and said, "Your daughter is fighting to keep light in this home." Her hands tightened in her lap. "I know," she whispered. "She is strong, stronger than I am, but she should not carry this weight." Her voice broke. "She should not be the one trying to save me." The human leaned forward, his voice firm. "Then let her save you," he said. "Let her laughter guide you back, even if it hurts." Her eyes flashed with pain. "You don't understand," she whispered harshly. "Every laugh reminds me of what I have lost. Every joy feels like betrayal to the one who is gone." The human felt the sharpness of her words, but he also saw the truth. The deeper she held onto sorrow, the more it crushed her daughter. He stayed silent, letting the weight of the moment settle. The lantern flickered again, shadows stretching across her face. In those shadows, he saw not weakness but exhaustion, a soul carrying too much pain alone. When morning came, the human prepared to leave. But the little girl clung to his arm, her voice urgent. "You will come back, won't you?" she begged. The human hesitated, looking at the tired figure of the mother. Then he nodded. "Yes, I will come back." The girl's face lit up, and for the first time, her laugh rang bright. It was a small sound, fragile yet beautiful. The mother looked up at the sound, her lips trembling. For a second, just one, a true smile touched her face. The human saw it, and so did the girl. But it vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only silence behind. That single smile, however brief, told the human something. The woman was not gone completely. There was still a part of her that could return. If only someone stayed long enough to reach it. As he stepped out into the light, the human thought of the girl's words. "Please, make my mom smile again." The plea echoed in his heart. And he knew this house, though quiet, still had a chance to find laughter once more. But only if he chose not to walk away. The human did not stay away. Each morning, he found himself walking back to the ruined home. He told himself it was because of the girl's plea, because no child should fight sorrow alone. But deep inside, he knew there was another reason. Something about the silence of the house called to him. Something about the mother's hollow eyes made him want to push back the darkness. The girl always met him first, her small hands grabbing his quickly. "Come, come, she is inside," she whispered with excitement. Her hope never faded, even when her mother barely spoke. The human admired her spirit, her strength hidden inside her tiny frame. One day, when he entered the house, he found the mother trying to fix a broken chair. Her hands trembled as she worked with worn tools. The chair wobbled no matter how tightly she pressed the pieces together. Frustration filled her eyes, but she did not cry out. Instead, she dropped the tools and sat back in silence. The girl looked at her mother, then at the human, her face pleading. Without a word, the human stepped forward, picked up the tools, and began to work. His hands were steady, his movements sure. The sound of wood being tightened filled the quiet home. Within minutes, the chair stood firm again, strong enough to hold weight. He placed it down gently, then stepped back. The girl clapped her hands, laughing. "Mama, look. He fixed it," she shouted. Her mother's eyes softened for just a moment. Her lips parted, and the faintest smile touched her face before vanishing. The human said nothing, but inside he felt the weight shift, even if only slightly. From that day, he began repairing what he could. He mended cracks in the walls, patched holes in the roof, and cleared broken stones from the yard. He did it not for reward, but because each small act gave the girl a reason to smile. And every time she smiled, her mother's gaze followed. The human saw how the mother tried to hide her feelings, but he noticed the faint warmth returning, like a spark refusing to die out. One evening, he brought food, simple bread and dried fruit. The girl's eyes widened with delight, and she ate happily. The mother hesitated, her hands resting on her lap. "You should keep this for yourself," she whispered. But the human shook his head. Food means little if not shared. She stared at him, caught off guard by his tone. Slowly, she took the bread, breaking it into small pieces for her daughter first. Only after the girl had eaten did she take a bite herself. The human watched quietly. It was not the food that mattered. It was the act. For the first time, the mother had accepted something from him. It was a small step, but steps like these built bridges. The days passed, and he began telling stories in the evenings. Tales of distant stars, of strange beasts, and of humans who refused to give up. The girl listened wide-eyed, clapping her hands and laughing at the funny parts. Sometimes, just sometimes, the mother would glance at him with the faintest trace of curiosity. Her lips never fully smiled, but her silence grew softer. The sharp edges of her grief dulled when his voice filled the air. Still, the human noticed her struggle. At night, when the girl slept, he saw her sitting alone by the lantern, her hands gripping her chest as if holding in pain. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. The human wanted to speak, but he held back. Kindness, he knew, was not always in words. It was in presence, in staying when others left. One afternoon, the girl fell while playing outside, scraping her knee. She cried loudly, calling for her mother. The woman rushed out, panic flashing across her face. She held the child close, whispering soft words as she wrapped the wound. The human stood nearby, ready to help, but he saw something important in that moment. The mother's love was not gone. It was buried under sorrow. Her hands shook, but her care was steady. The girl sniffled, then laughed weakly. "I'm okay, Mama." For the first time, the human saw the woman's eyes shine, even if just for seconds. That night, he quietly left firewood by their door. The girl discovered it the next morning and ran inside with joy. "Mama, look what he left us." The mother touched the wood, her fingers brushing over the rough surface. Her lips parted, and she whispered something so faint the human barely heard. Why do you help us?" The human paused, then answered simply, "Because your daughter asked me to." Her eyes filled with something unreadable, anger, sorrow, or perhaps confusion. But she did not push him away. Instead, she sat in silence, her hand resting gently on her daughter's hair. In the days that followed, the house began to change. The walls no longer felt so heavy, the silence not so sharp. The girl laughed more often, her voice filling the empty spaces. And though the mother still fought her grief, the human noticed something new. Her eyes followed him sometimes, not with trust yet, but with cautious wonder. It was as if she was asking without words, "Why haven't you left?" And each time, the human answered the same way, not with speeches or promises, but with actions, small acts of kindness. Fixing a chair, sharing food, telling stories, leaving firewood. Every act carved a small crack in the wall of sorrow that trapped her. The girl saw it too. One evening, as the human prepared to leave, she whispered to him, "Thank you, human. I think Mama is starting to hear my laughter again." The human walked away under the night sky, her words echoing in his heart. Perhaps, he thought, it was not impossible after all. Perhaps kindness could bring back a smile, even in a house without joy. The village had begun to notice. Whispers followed the human whenever he walked the broken streets. Some eyes watched with curiosity, others with suspicion, and a few with mockery. The sight of a human entering the lonely house again and again stirred tongues. No one had dared to step into the widow's sorrow, yet this outsider chose to stay. One afternoon, as he carried a bundle of wood, 2 alien men blocked his way. Their faces were hard, their voices sharp. "Human, why do you waste your time there?" one sneered. "She is broken, her smile buried with her husband. Do you think you can dig it back out? The other laughed bitterly. You shame yourself walking into that house. Even her own kin abandoned her, yet you act like a fool. The human did not argue. He only shifted the wood in his arms and walked past them. But their laughter lingered in the air like smoke. He felt the sting of their words, not for himself, but for the woman inside. If the village had already given up on her, what chance did she have without someone standing beside her? Inside the house, the little girl greeted him with her usual cheer. Human, you came back again, she said, tugging his arm eagerly. But when she looked at his face, her smile faltered. What's wrong? She asked softly. He shook his head, forcing a small smile. Nothing, little one, I'm only tired. That evening, as he told another story, he noticed the mother watching him. Not with anger, not with warmth, but with something cautious. When the story ended and the girl fell asleep with the doll in her arms, the woman spoke for the first time in many nights. Why do you stay? She asked, her voice low, her eyes sharp. Surely your people have better places, better company. The human's gaze did not waver. I stay because your daughter asked me, he replied simply. The mother's lips trembled faintly. She does not understand, she whispered. She thinks laughter is enough to heal wounds that never close. Her voice cracked as she turned away. She is only a child. She does not see how hope can hurt. The human did not move closer, but his voice was steady. Sometimes it takes a child to remind us that hope is not foolish. Her eyes flicked back to him, shimmering in the lantern light. But she said nothing more, only lowered her head. Still, the silence that followed felt different. Not cold, but uncertain. As if a small crack had opened in her wall of grief. The next day, gossip grew louder. Two women at the well spoke openly as the human passed by. Perhaps the human is desperate. Why else would he linger with her? Desperate? No, foolish. He cannot save what is already lost. Their words burned in his ears, but he walked on. He knew repeating such cruelty would only wound the little girl further. When he arrived at the house, the girl ran to him with bright eyes. Come, come, I have a surprise, she said, dragging him inside. On the table was a single flower in a cracked cup. Its petals faint but glowing softly in the lantern light. Mama found it, the girl whispered proudly. She put it here because she said the table looked too empty. The human's heart tightened. It was such a small thing, but it meant more than all the gossip outside. The mother, sitting quietly nearby, did not meet his eyes. But he saw the faintest blush of color on her cheeks. She had placed the flower not for herself, but for her daughter. And maybe, just maybe, for the human who kept returning. That evening, the girl clapped her hands as the human finished another story. She laughed loudly, the sound echoing against the quiet walls. And then it happened. Her mother's lips curved. It was small, fragile, but it was a true smile. The human caught it before she quickly turned her face away. But the girl saw it too, gasping with joy. Mama, you smiled. You really smiled. The woman froze, her breath catching. For a moment, her hands trembled as if she did not know what to do. But the girl leapt into her lap, hugging her tightly. See, Mama? I told you he could help. I told you laughter can come back. The mother's eyes glistened with tears. Her voice broke as she whispered, just for a moment, only for a moment. The human said nothing. He knew pressing her would only push her back into the shadows. Instead, he let the silence sit gently, letting the warmth linger where it could. Later that night, when the girl had fallen asleep, the mother looked at him again. Her voice was shaky, but softer than before. They will not understand, she whispered. The village, my kin, they will whisper, they will laugh, they already call me broken. Her eyes met his, filled with pain. You will carry their shame if you stay. The human's answer came quietly, but firmly. Kindness is never shameful. The woman's lips parted, but no words came. Instead, tears slipped down her cheeks silently. She turned away, but this time she did not hide her face fully. She allowed herself to be seen, even in sorrow. The human understood then. It was not about forcing her to smile, not about replacing what she had lost. It was about showing her that hope was not her enemy. That kindness could exist without demand, without cost. As he left the house that night, the whispers of the village still followed him. But in his heart, another whisper was louder. The faint voice of a child, full of hope. Please, human, make my mom smile again. And for the first time, he believed it might be possible. The night was quiet, the stars hidden behind heavy clouds. The human sat inside the dim house, the lantern flickering weakly. The little girl had fallen asleep, curled up with her doll against the blanket. Her soft breaths filled the silence, leaving only the sound of the lantern flame. The mother sat nearby, her hands folded tightly together. Her face was pale in the weak light, her eyes lowered. The human could feel the weight pressing down on her, heavier than stone. He had seen sorrow before, but hers was different, deeper, endless, a sorrow that did not end when the sun rose. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, at last, her voice broke the silence, soft and trembling. I do not understand you, human, she whispered. You come every day, you fix what is broken, you tell stories, but why? Her eyes lifted, shimmering with unshed tears. You do not belong here, yet you choose to stay. The human met her gaze calmly. Because your daughter asked me to, he said, his voice steady. The woman's lips pressed tightly, a tear escaping down her cheek. You speak of her as if she is the only reason, she whispered. But I see the way you look at me, with pity. The human shook his head slowly. No, not pity, he answered. I look at you and see someone fighting every day just to breathe. Her hands trembled, her shoulders shaking. Fighting? She whispered bitterly. I am not fighting, I am losing every single day. Her voice broke. I am tired, human. So tired of pretending to be strong for her. Her tears began to fall, hot and steady. She deserves laughter, warmth, love. But I cannot give it. My heart is broken, my smile is gone. She covered her face with her hands, her sobs breaking the silence of the house. The human's chest tightened at the sound. He wanted to reach out, but he stopped himself. Her pain was raw, not something that could be touched away. He sat quietly, letting her weep, letting the tears finally flow after years of silence. The little girl stirred in her sleep, her small hand reaching blindly toward her mother. The woman saw it, and her sobs grew harsher. She whispered, she should not see me like this, she should not carry my sorrow. Her voice cracked, but I cannot hide it anymore, I cannot. The human leaned forward, his voice low but firm. Then do not hide, he said. Let her see that you cry, let her see that you are human, or alien, but alive. Tears do not mean weakness, they mean you are still here. The mother's breath caught, her hands slowly lowering from her face. Her golden eyes shone with tears, raw and vulnerable. She looked at him as if searching for something, anger, judgment, rejection. But he gave none of those, only calm silence, only presence. Her shoulders shook again, and she whispered, I do not want to be alone anymore. The words were so fragile, so broken, that they struck him harder than any weapon could. Her daughter shifted again in her sleep, murmuring softly, Don't leave, Mama. The woman broke completely then. She pulled her daughter close, holding her small body against her chest. Tears poured freely down her face, soaking the child's hair. I'm here, I won't leave you, she sobbed. The human looked away, giving them the moment. But inside, something moved in him. An ache, a fierce determination. This family had been left behind by everyone, but he would not leave them. When the girl fell back into deep sleep, the mother's eyes returned to him. Her face was wet, her voice cracked and soft. Why do you not leave? She asked again. Everyone else did. Even my kin. Even my friends. They say I am broken, that I will never heal. Why do you stay? The human's answer was simple, but heavy. Because I believe no one is beyond healing. Her lips trembled, and she turned her face away. You don't know me, she whispered. You don't know how deep my scars go. The human rose slowly, walking to the window. The night outside was dark, the ruins silent. No, he said, his voice steady. I don't know everything about you, but I know your daughter's laughter. I know the sound of your tears. And I know that both are worth standing beside. The mother closed her eyes, more tears spilling down her cheeks. For the first time, she did not hide them. For the first time, she let herself be seen fully broken. And in that breaking, something changed, something small, but real. The weight of silence in the house lifted just slightly. When the human turned back, she was staring at him. Her voice was hoarse, trembling. Please, don't go, she whispered. The words were barely audible, but they held the force of years of loneliness. The human nodded once. I won't, he said. That night, the house was not filled with laughter. But it was no longer filled with silence either. It was filled with something new, sorrow released, truth spoken. And in that fragile space, hope began to breathe again. The sun rose slowly over the ruined village. Its golden light touched broken walls, cracked streets, and empty homes. But inside one small house, something was changing. The silence that had once ruled there was no longer as heavy. The human had stayed, and the weight of loneliness was beginning to crack. The little girl woke first, her eyes bright as she saw the human sitting near the door. You stayed, she whispered, her voice full of relief. The human nodded, offering her a gentle smile. Her tiny hands grabbed his, warm and full of trust. Thank you, she whispered. I dreamed Mama was laughing again. The mother stirred at those words, her eyes opening slowly. She blinked against the morning light, her face still marked with the tears of the night before. When she saw the human still there, her lips parted in surprise. You didn't leave, she murmured. Her voice carried disbelief, but also something else, something softer. The human shook his head. I said I wouldn't. Her eyes glistened faintly, and though her expression stayed guarded, she did not look away. The girl crawled into her mother's lap, hugging her tightly. Mama, today you will smile again. I know it, she said confidently. Her mother's hands trembled as she stroked the child's hair. Her lips moved as if to deny it, but no words came. As the days passed, the human continued to return. Each visit brought small changes, little things no one else would notice. A repaired wall, a swept floor, a fresh bundle of firewood. And with every act, the house grew lighter. The girl's laughter grew louder, filling the rooms where silence once ruled. And the mother, though her smiles were fleeting, they no longer felt impossible. Still, whispers in the village continued. Some mocked the human for wasting his time, others called the widow a curse. But the human ignored them, his focus never leaving the small family. And slowly, the woman began to notice. Every time he returned, her daughter's eyes lit with joy. And every time her daughter laughed, something inside her chest stirred. A warmth she thought had died long ago. One evening, as the lantern flickered softly, the human told another story. This one was about a soldier who had lost everything but found hope in a single act of kindness. The girl clapped, her laughter ringing through the small home. The mother sat quietly, her eyes fixed on the human. When the story ended, her lips trembled, and for the first time in many years, she let out a small laugh, faint but real. The girl gasped, Mama, you laughed. She threw her arms around her mother, her eyes shining. The woman froze, her face breaking as tears spilled down her cheeks. But this time, the tears were different, not just sorrow, but release. The human watched silently, his chest tight with emotion. He knew this moment was not the end of her grief, but it was the beginning of healing. Later, when the girl fell asleep, the mother remained awake. Her eyes met the human's, her voice trembling. I am afraid, she whispered. Afraid that if I let myself live again, I will forget him, the one I lost. Her hands clutched at her chest, her tears fresh. I do not want to betray his memory. The human's voice was gentle but firm. To smile is not betrayal, he said. To laugh, to live, does not erase love, it honors it. Your daughter does not need you to forget him. She only needs you to remember how to live. The mother closed her eyes, her tears falling freely. Her shoulders shook, but her breathing steadied. For the first time, she allowed those words to sink in. For the first time, she believed they might be true. The next morning, the human prepared to leave for a short while. The girl clung to his arm, worried. You'll come back, right? She asked, her eyes wide. The human knelt, touching her hair gently. I'll always come back, he promised. The girl beamed and turned to her mother. See, Mama? He will never leave us. The mother's eyes softened, and for once, she did not argue. She only whispered, be safe. It was a small thing, but those 2 words carried more meaning than any he had heard from her before. Days later, when he returned, he found the house different. The floor swept, the lantern burning brighter, and the flower in the cracked cup replaced with a fresher one. The girl ran to him, laughing. Mama cleaned. Mama said we should make the house nice for you. The woman's cheeks flushed, and she turned away quickly. But the human saw it. Her effort, her quiet act of opening her world again. That evening, as they sat together, the girl resting between them, the mother looked at him, her eyes softer than they had ever been. Her lips curved, slow and trembling. And this time, her smile stayed. It was fragile, but it was real. A smile not forced, not fleeting, but born from the warmth slowly returning to her heart. The girl clapped her hands, her laughter filling the room. You did it, Mama. You smiled again. The mother held her daughter close, tears glistening in her golden eyes. She whispered softly, almost to herself, perhaps I can smile again. The human said nothing, but inside, he knew the little girl's plea had been answered. Not fully, not completely, for grief never vanished. But the spark of life had returned, and with it, the promise of tomorrow. For the first time in years, the house was no longer silent. It was alive, with laughter, with tears, with hope. And at the center of it was a human who had dared to stay. A human who had made her smile again.